Hello, I know it's been a minute, but my name is DeGarian Andrews, and welcome to another episode of Man Cave Movies. Today I am very excited because we will be discussing one of my favorite horror movie franchises, actually my favorite franchise, and that is the Scream franchise. And the focus of today's episode is to discuss my favorite final girl, Miss Sidney Prescott, played by Neve Campbell. So in this episode, we'll be talking about why she's my favorite final girl, her matriculation throughout the franchise, and the anticipation for Scream 7 being released on February 27th, 2026. So sit back, relax, do not answer the phone, and enjoy this episode of Man Cave Movies. Hello, welcome back to this episode of Man Cave Movies. I'm your host, DeGarian Andrews. This is my Man Cave, and these are my movies. So we are going to dive right into it because I am very excited. The Scream franchise. The first Scream was written by Kevin Williamson and directed by Wes Craven, and it was released in December of 1996. Now, when this film was released, upon initial release, it was not a box office success. I don't even think it opened in the top 10, and if it did, it was really low. This is one of those movies that's like the little engine that could. It picked up steam every subsequent weekend until it reached the top 3, I want to say. And for those of you who have not seen Scream or any in the franchise, you might want to pause, go grab your Blu-ray or your DVD, or check Netflix or Amazon Prime to see where these movies are, because there may be some spoilers embedded in this episode. It is about this group of friends living in a small town called Woodsboro, and they're being stalked by these killers that call your phone. They have a love of horror movies, so they ask you all these questions. You get the questions right, you die. You get them wrong, you die. And at the center of these films is the heroine, who is played by Neve Campbell. Her name is Sidney Prescott in the films. She's lost her mother a year before due to a gruesome, grisly murder. She's trying to put her life back together. She's having, intimacy issues with her boyfriend. And we follow this group of friends throughout the film as they're picked off one by one by this ghost-faced killer. So that's the setup for Scream. In a nutshell, it's so much more than that. If you've never seen the movies before, I advise you to see them. Great fun. You'll enjoy it. It'll keep you on the edge of your seat. All of these films are like a whodunit, a mystery murder, somewhat. So, the focus of today's episode is Miss Sidney Prescott, who I'm going to go out on a limb and say, please do not crucify me. This is my opinion. Sidney Prescott is the ultimate final girl. She's the best final girl in horror movie history for a number of reasons. I know a lot of horror fans may say that title goes to the original Scream Queen, Miss Jamie Lee Curtis, who played Laurie Strode in the Halloween films. Nothing against Jamie Lee Curtis. I enjoy the Halloween films just fine, but Sidney is notches above her, in my opinion, for several reasons. And I also like to acknowledge some other final girls from horror franchises that I love. We'll start with the Elm Street franchise. There is Nancy Thompson, played by Heather Langenkamp, which I think is a great honorable mention. There is also Alice Johnson from Nightmare on Elm Street 4 and 5, played brilliantly by Lisa Wilcox, that I think deserves mention. There's also Ripley in Aliens, played by Sigourney Weaver. There is Julie James in I Know What You Did Last Summer, played by Jennifer Love Hewitt. There is even Courtney Cox, that plays Gail Weathers in the Scream franchise, just to name a few. But I think that Sidney is leaps and bounds ahead of them. We'll discuss why when we come back. Stay tuned to Man Cave Movies. Welcome back to Man Cave Movies. I'm your host, DeGarian Andrews. This is my Man Cave, and these are my movies. We were discussing why I feel that Sidney Prescott is the ultimate final girl and my favorite final girl, and we mentioned Laurie Strode and Julie James and Nancy Thompson and Alice Johnson. I feel for one ultimate reason that Sidney Prescott is the ultimate final girl is because she never dies. She's never been killed in any of these films. She's been banged up, she's been bruised, she's been stabbed. She keeps coming back. She never dies. And I know some of you may be thinking about the newer Halloween films with Jamie Lee Curtis, in which her character lasts throughout all three of them. But if you can remember in Halloween Resurrection, the one with Busta Rhymes and Tyra Banks, Laurie Strode actually dies. Michael Myers comes to the mental institution where she is a patient and he kills her. So I know most people say, oh, that doesn't count. We erased that one from memory, but it's there on celluloid. She dies. Heather Langenkamp dies as Nancy Thompson in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, Dream Warriors. She dies at the very end. She goes out as a hero, yes, but she dies. Lisa Wilcox does not die as Alice Johnson, but she's only in 2 films as opposed to Neve Campbell's Sidney. With the release of Part 7, she will have been in 6 of the 7 films. So that's one reason she does not die. Can't stop, won't stop. She can be a villain all in her own right because you can't kill her. And I've heard that Neve Campbell has a clause in her contract that Sidney can never die and she can never be the villain, which I have absolutely no issues with that. I love the Carpenter twins in Part 5 and Part 6 just fine, but I was missing Sidney Prescott, so I'm glad she's making her return. So that's reason 1, she never dies. Reason 2 is that she is so kick-ass, she fights back. There are final girls that fight back when their back is against the wall, but Sidney has always been a fighter. For example, let's take Alice Johnson from A Nightmare on Elm Street 4. She became a fighter because she took on the powers of her friends as they all succumbed to Freddy Krueger. She was not a fighter initially. Julie James from I Know What You Did Last Summer is not really a fighter. She runs a lot. She may pick up a weapon. She may pick up a gun and use it, but hand-to-hand fighting, combat, she does not have that. I think Sidney is unmatched when it comes to just street fighting, hand-to-hand combat, that killer instinct, that killer mentality where if she has to, she's going to fight her way out by any means necessary. I think she is unmatched in that regard. I have personally never seen another final girl do that. Yes, in the original Halloween, Jamie Lee Curtis survived, but Jamie Lee Curtis did a lot of running, a lot of screaming. She was practical when it came to surviving, like with the hanger in the closet and things like that, but her survival was due in large part to Dr. Loomis as well. And one may say that, well, had Gail not shot Billy, Sidney would not have survived. Yeah, that could be true, but Sidney was fighting. She was fighting back before Gail even came in with the gun. So she outsmarts them, she fights back, and that's the main reason, aside from her never dying, that I think she is the ultimate final girl. Sidney Prescott cannot be touched. Hands down, she is the ultimate final girl. Stay with us. We'll discuss Sidney Prescott more when we return to Man Cave Movies. Welcome back to Man Cave Movies. I'm your host, DeGarian Andrews. As you all know, this is my Man Cave and these are my movies. We're discussing Sidney Prescott as the ultimate final girl, and I just want to talk about her evolution throughout the franchise. Now, this has no bearing on why she's my favorite final girl, but I just want to talk about her character arc and where she started and where she is as of the last film that she was a part of. So in part one, we see this young teen, this high schooler, grappling with the fact that her mother has been murdered. She's having intimacy issues with her boyfriend. Her life has been upheaved, turned upside down, and she's pulling it all together. And in the midst of that, she's being stalked and trying to be killed by these murderers. And she deals with that in a way that fighters do. Those of us that have that killer instinct, that fighting nature, we're not going to lie down easily. And she deals with that. And in the end, she takes down the bad guys. In Scream 2, she's in college at Windsor College, and she is a bit more mature. You see her with the caller ID on her phone at the beginning of the film because she is used to getting these prank calls now. So she's matured and she's wiser now about her surroundings. She's more suspicious of the people that she allows to get close to her. So in part two, she's in a different place. I would say she's stronger. Part two was my favorite performance of Neve Campbell as Sidney Prescott. I just feel like the emotional baggage and the emotional gravitas that she had in that film was like no other I've seen her in. She was battling between, do I trust this person? Do I not trust this person? Do I want to run and be that fighter girl that runs, as we see is evident in the scene with she and Elise Neal's character Hallie when she says, I'm sick of running, and she wants to go back. So she's in a different place there. She's older, she's mature, she's wiser, and I just really appreciate her work in part two. And in part three, we see her living secluded and isolated because the murders have kind of gotten to her. So she's under an alias. She is a women's counselor. And then when the murders start back, once again, she chooses to face her fears head on. She comes in, she starts to help with the investigation. And once again, she helps to kill the bad guy, which happens to be her brother. Go figure. So many people want this woman dead, but none of them have been successful. And in part four, which I grew to love, I loved it when I saw it in theaters twice. And then I was like, kind of pales in comparison to the others. But then when I watched it over and over and over again, I saw that, this one, it can stand on its own as an entry into the franchise. And here we see an adult Sidney. She's an author now. She's tried to put because Scream 4 was released in 2011 and Scream 3 was released in 2000, so there is an 11-year gap in between films. So she's tried to put all of that behind her because if we're moving in real time, it's been 11 years since you've been stalked and there have been attempts on your life. So she's put those things behind her and she stops in Woodsboro for her book tour. The murders start to happen again. So in this one, we see her really, really trying to protect her family, her cousin Jill, her aunt. And so she's coming from a different place. In other films, yes, she wants her friends to live. Yes, she tries to help. But as there's a line in Scream 4 that says, it's the family ties that cut or hurt the most. Forgive me if I'm paraphrasing. So she has that added pressure trying to protect her family in Scream 4. So we get another nuanced, emotional performance from Sidney in part 4. And then we move to part 5, which was the last one we see her in. And we kind of see her in that legacy character, mother hen role. She has a part in the first act where we see that now she's a mother, she's married, she has a family. She's put it behind her, but she shows up in the final act to do what Sidney does, which is save the day. And I think she was underutilized in that film. For fans of Sidney Prescott, I know this fan was kind of left disappointed because I wanted to see more of her. I'm not I'm not one of those that needs to see the story go in a different direction. It started with Sidney. It's Sidney's story. I don't, even when Sidney is not on screen in part 5, she wasn't even a part of part 6. The essence of Scream was and is Sidney Prescott. So even if she was not there, she was still there. So I think overall her arc in these films has been incredible. It's been incredible that she has been able to sustain this character and keep us coming back to the theater for 30 years. For 30 whole years. It would be 30 years, almost 30 years since the release of Scream 1 with the release of Scream 7. So I've said all that to say that Sidney Prescott deserves respect. She deserves to be the first face on the Mount Rushmore of female final girls. That's my opinion. I'm not changing it. Horror fans, let me know what you think in the comments. Remember to continue to like, subscribe, comment, share these episodes with your friends. Have them share it with 3 friends. Have them share it with 3 friends. Post and tag me on your Instagram, on your YouTube. Whatever we can do to make Man Cave Movies bigger and better and reach a broader audience, I'll always be here. This is DeGarian Andrews signing off of Man Cave Movies.